Hello, hello, hello there, everyone. How are you today? Patricia is here. A little slow on the uptake because, we live in the Austin area and the allergies are a very real thing. Cedar fever, y'all. It's a thing. All right, let's make sure we're up and going good. All right, let me see. Make sure we're set. There we go. I hope you all are doing well on this Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Let's see. Here we are. Okay, very good. Hello there for anyone who's joining for the first time. My name is Patricia Hayes. I am an executive advisor, career empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And I am here with our Coffee Time Career Chat. Super excited to be here with you all on this Martin Luther King holiday. And it's actually, I promise I did not plan today's topic to fit with today's holiday, but it's absolutely appropriate. So I'm looking forward to jumping in there. For those of you who are joining for the first time, Coffee Time Career Chat has been going on for almost, about 10, 11 months now, as a result of the inability, I should say, of us to get together and have coffee like we might in person. And so I started doing these last spring to kind of compensate for not being able to have coffee with my friends and colleagues 2 or 3 times a week. And so Coffee Time Career Chat was born twice a week throughout the pandemic time frame and into 2021. And I am super excited about what we're doing. We host them on Mondays, normally around 10, the 10-ish hour. As you can see today, my apologies. Was feeling a little under the weather because of our lovely Austin allergies. But also on Wednesdays, which we will continue, Wednesdays are not live, Wednesdays are recorded. However, you can absolutely check in, check the feed, let me hear the feedback. But Wednesdays is now officially dedicated to authentic networking. So it's our authentic networking edition on Wednesdays. Focus on all things related to building out your professional relationships so that you can have a strong foundation for your career moving forward, that is based in your being able to connect with the right people at the right time, utilizing the relationships you already have. So that's on Wednesdays, and I'm excited about launching that because we're building that out to some other things that are going to be going on throughout the course of the year that I will be sharing with you. All right, so here's the thing. We're going to jump straight in to today's topic, which is acknowledging who inspires you. See how that fits with today? And this is important from the context of this month we are talking about a fresh start, getting a fresh beginning for the year. And so when we're having that, there are these series of things we've been talking about so far this month, right? We talked about, getting a new mindset about how you approach things, about reconnecting with your relationships and professional relationships so that you can get off to a good start. And then this week we're going to talk about your sources of inspiration because it's really important to acknowledge them because these are the things and the people who will probably provide a very strong backbone for you throughout the course of the year. So you really do want to acknowledge it in real time, to get with it, not just as a passing thought, but as a more active acknowledgement and one that you take more control over. And I'm going to help you work through that right now. But first of all, let's lay the ground rules so that we have the same basis of explaining what an inspiration is or what does it mean to be inspired. And so, you know me, I always have to go to the to the dictionary and so it's the easiest way to level set understanding. And so one of the dictionary definitions, and most of them they were pretty consistent, is that inspiration is the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially to do something creative. And so you're talking about that's the inspiration being the process, or to be inspired, or inspiration as an action or activity. But it's basically about how someone perceives a thing or a person that causes them to think of something else that makes them want to take action or to do something that will move them forward in a creative way, in a new way. And so when you do that, it's really important, and it's going to be fantastic about how this fits in with the things we're going to talk about today. So, but I want you to think about some of those key words when you're defining inspiration. Number one, that mental stimulation, right? So that's an internal thing that happens with you. Then to take action, to do or to feel something, right? And then especially in a creative realm. All right. Think about those things as we go through, and we're going to talk about these things in a little bit more detail. All right. So when we're talking about being inspired anew in 2021, here's the thing, is that you want to be sure to seek out and be open about new inspiration sources. Actually, we're going to build on those things as a foundation, right? So it's always great to go take a look back. Y'all know how I am about reflection, but to take a look back and to acknowledge those things that have inspired us in the past, all right? And to write them down, whether they're people, whether they're places, whether they're things. I mean, like for me, for example, I have a long list of people that I'm inspired by, both historically and currently. Dr. Martin Luther King clearly is a source of inspiration for me in so many ways, from pursuing social justice to being someone who stood up for what they believed in, for being a strong advocate for what he believed in, all of those types of things, right? And we're going to talk a little bit in just a minute about how to acknowledge those levels. But just like that's a person, there are also places that inspire me, right? So, I mean, for me, going to the beach or the mountains or someplace where there's some water around, like that is very, very inspirational to me, because it allows me to sit back, to take in nature, to think freely and creatively when I might not otherwise do that when there's so much stimulation from the TV, from our phones, from all these other things, right? So it's not just always a person. It very well can be a place. Another place is New York. Oh my gosh, my daughter and I love New York City. And when we were traveling with her for dance, I mean, there would be those times I would be super excited. I'm like, are y'all ready with your classes? Go off to your class, because I want to go explore. I want to go be able to take in, and so that I can then, again, by the things that I'm observing, the situations, the environment, that can cause me to get some, what is it, a feeling or an action, but where it can cause me to think differently about my situation, about how I might want to approach things. That's what you're looking at. So when you're looking at those things that inspired you previously, let's think about also what can inspire you anew in 2021. Because what you don't want to do is get caught in a rut of seeking out the same old things as sources of inspiration. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't continue to be inspired by something that has inspired you before. That is not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, however, is you want to leave yourself open and available to new sources of inspiration, to things that you might not expect to be inspired by places that you might not expect to be inspired by, okay? Those new sources are so valuable to us, because what it does is, like I said, it gets us out of our rut. It helps us to be aware, to know that there's an opportunity to think differently. And when we think differently, we allow ourselves to grow. It can be a source of growth when you think differently. All right. And sometimes it causes us to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. When you're doing something new, when you're doing something that you hadn't thought of before, it will cause us to be a little bit uncomfortable. It can also cause us to be a little bit excited. And those are not contrary feelings, but they are very real feelings. Okay. So think about that moving forward, not just to expect, putting all that weight on the things that went before, but also being open to what's new and leaving yourself a pathway to explore those things that are new to you. And I'm lingering there because it's really important. Most people do not take that opportunity to think about how they can put themselves in the position of being exposed to new things, new opportunities, new ways of thinking. It is an action in and of itself to allow that to happen. And that is very important, especially if you plan on growing professionally and personally. So think about how you can put yourself in that place, and then go from there. Now, that's number one. Number two is you want to take note of why you are inspired by those things. This is what I started to get a little bit into when I was describing being inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King. All right. So here's those things, right? I mentioned continuing with that example is, being inspired by his ability to stand up for what he believes in, by his ability to be a strong advocate for what he believes in, for being a strong leader, for walking contrary to what others might expect of him, to listening to what others have to provide, but being able to make a decision. Like, there's this long list of things, right? I could keep going. But here's what you have to do. You want to actively write things down, handy dandy notebook. Write down what those things are. So once you've acknowledged who the sources are, sources of inspiration are, or the places, then you want to look at what are the things or why they inspire you, right? Why, excuse me, why do they move you to feel a certain way or to take some action? Couple of things. Number one, sometimes it's because they're relatable, right? Someone says or does something like, oh my gosh, I absolutely can relate to that situation. I've been there. Let me explore a little bit more about what they've done and why they've been in that situation. Getting honest feedback. When someone is saying some things that you're like, man, that's so true. And so that inspires you to dig a little bit deeper, to reset, to reconnect, all right? Accountability. This is a big one. When someone inspires you to be more accountable or to seek accountability for actions that you're doing, like that is so cool. This happens a lot when it comes to, for example, health-related things, right? When we're not necessarily motivated sometimes to take the steps that we need to move ourselves forward with health-related goals, but you can be inspired by, for example, just yesterday, I think it was last night, there was a piece on 60 Minutes about a football player who had been injured on the field, like had this horrible spiral fracture in his leg, but which they were working to fix. But in the course of it, he got some horrible bacterial flesh-eating disease that literally almost cost him his life. But the thing that was so inspiring about it is that instead of doing what folks thought he should do, which was, perhaps get the amputation so they can ensure his life, he was like, no, do whatever you can. And so his desire to keep moving forward and to save his leg and his life forced others to think more creatively, to think outside the box, to find some other things. And they found another way to save his leg. And that entire story was just so incredible to me. And that this young man is back on the field playing football. I was just like, I would not be able to do it. But that is so inspirational because that is showing a source of strength and courage, and about overcoming in ways that you don't think can be overcome, that even those who you love and trust around you may not believe it at that time, but they seek to support you when you say, no, we're going to do it this way. Man, that there was so much to that story. But there's that thing, right? It's like, what is it that moves you? And think about this. These are the things that stick with you, right? And so when you're moving forward and you're becoming where someone may cause you to seek out accountability, it's like, okay, I know I need to do X. Let me go call this person so that I can report in, so that we can set up a schedule of saying, hey, I really want to be true to this. Can you help me, honor this commitment to myself or to others? That's what accountability is. And then there's reinforcement. There's being inspired in a way that reinforces beliefs or actions that you're already. These come about a lot of times when you're kind of feeling down and you're just like, I don't know if I should continue doing this. Why am I doing this? But then someone comes along unexpectedly, a person, a thing, a quote, that gives you that extra and reminds you of why it is you are committed to taking the action that you've been doing, to pursuing the goals that you have been pursuing. So those are all the types of things to think about when you're documenting who inspires you, and you want to acknowledge why, right? That there's a relatable aspect, that they're providing honest feedback, there's a level of accountability, or there's some level of reinforcement. And the reason why you're writing all these things down is, Betsy, that was a blessing. I watched most of 60 Minutes. Wasn't that fascinating? I'm getting chills thinking about it again. I truly am. Like, that story, I'm going to be doing some writing about that story, because I was literally sitting there with my mouth open, and my daughter was like, Mom, close your mouth. But I was just like, oh my gosh. So it truly was. It truly was like, that young man is a walking miracle and has such a story of strength and courage to tell. And those are those things, that inspire others. He wasn't doing it to be an inspiration. He was doing it to save his life and to save his leg and to save his dream. Remember, because that was his thing. He wanted to be able to continue to play football, and no one thought that he would ever be able to do that again, and he did it. Right? All of that. And when we take those things and we look at them and we write them down, y'all know I'm a huge advocate for writing things down. Why? Because it makes things real. When we let things flurry around in our heads, they come and go. I mean, like, literally this morning, I got this reminder about a bill that I need to pay, that I know I need to pay. And I'm like, oh, crud, I still haven't done that. Why? Because I let it come and go. And I'm like, no, you have to write it down and take that action, because that is what will feed you. You can come back to it. So write things down so that it won't come and go. You have something to refer back to, and that you can reflect on moving forward, right? And this is super important about being able to reflect on things moving forward, which is what we'll get to in just a second. So take those things, take those people, take those places, write them down, and then write down why, the question, why does this inspire me? Why does this person inspire me? Why does this quote inspire me? And when you write that down, what you're doing then is acknowledging the types of things that cause for you to be inspired by. And that's great, because that can be a way for you to help seek out new sources of inspiration. But it can also perhaps show you where you've maybe fallen into a rut, and you're only looking at certain types of things or only certain types of people to be inspired by. So that list can also show you and direct you to where you might need to seek out new places and new people to be inspired by. So it can serve twofold purposes, and which will support you in your growth moving forward and how you look forward for the year. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3 is that when you've done all of that, you can translate that inspiration to action on your goals. This is what we're getting to. Because just being inspired by something does not automatically translate into action. You have to do something with it. There are tons of people who see pretty quotes written on social media, or the lovely quote that's put on a piece of art. But what does it cause you to do? Because remember, inspiration, remember the definition when it says that it stimulates you to do or feel something. What about that do and feel? If you feel a certain way, and then what action are you taking on that? Does that feeling motivate you? Does it translate to you taking action of, you know what, I am going to stay committed to my goal. Here's what I'm going to do to stay committed to my goal. I know I need to do better about X. Let me go seek out someone who can help me be accountable about X. I have had this dream of doing Y for so long. I'm going to start putting into action something that will help me to achieve it. Baby steps, not big giant. What is it? Don't try to eat the whole elephant. Take tiny bites, right? That is so important. This is the crux of what you're really trying to get to. All right? You've got to take the effort to translate all of that inspiration into action towards a specific thing. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go do X and then you're done. If you've done one thing, you think, well, why didn't that happen? No. It's got to be continual. There's got to be some follow-up, which is why it's super important to translate that level of inspiration, those things and those people to specific things. And what are those specific things we're going to reference to? Your goals for 2021, right? Not resolutions. We don't do resolutions around here because those come and go, they fade, and then people get discouraged. No, what are your goals? What are the things you're seeking to achieve? Not that you're resolving to do, because there is a little difference, right? But here's the goal. Because here's the thing, your goals midway through the year might shift. Or a particular goal maybe you achieve it early. Does that mean you're like, okay, well, I'm done? No, you expand it. Or if something's causing a little more difficult, it's like, well, how do I need to pivot, right? How do I need to adjust? Your goals are living, breathing things that belong to you, and you want to put into place those things that will help you to achieve them long term. Okay? One of those things, like I love to write. I've been working on some projects I hadn't followed through on. And, at the end of last year, I finally sucked it up and I called a friend who's an editor and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about X. She was like, okay, let's do this. I was like, what? Caught me off guard. But hey, I've got some accountability I wasn't necessarily looking forward to. So now I got to stay on top of it, right? That's what happens when we get this source of inspiration by someone who's doing something, who has done something, who has achieved something. And we're like, yes, you connect to that. You connect to that person. You connect to that place that has you thinking new ways and new things. That's what being creative is. People think creativity is just linked to something artistic. It is not. Creativity is linked to new ideas, new ways of thinking, and how that helps you to act and do something new and different that builds forward, right? And some people that can relate to being, an artistic format. Others, it may be because of how they write their reports or whatever. It thinks, don't leave creativity in a box. That's a whole other conversation. Y'all know that I normally would save Wednesdays to talk about creative issues and things like that. I may have to get back to that. So that's what you want to think about, is translate that inspiration to action on your goals. And when you do that, you will have, and writing all of these things down, you will have a little line that you can follow, right? You can be like, oh yeah, that's how that works. Or let me think about that. And that doesn't mean you have to limit your sources of inspiration or anything like that. Because more than likely what happens is that you'll be able to see where they fall into kind of groups, right? There's kind of groups or sources of things. I read a lot. And so I'm always highlighting and pulling quotes and things that really strike home with me from the readings that I have, and then I turn them into quotes on things that I can post and share with others, right? Or maybe it's not one that I share because I'm like, it really strikes home with me, and I'm like, I'm going to plaster it on a note so that I can see it every day, okay? One of those things that makes things come home to and be more effective is when we do share when something has inspired us, okay? Because you never know who you're going to help when you share that, because so many times we think we're in our own little bubble when it comes to certain things, and in reality we're not. And that in itself is something that helps to build and to reinforce where we're going and what it is we're trying to do, right? When you share that with someone else who's open to receiving it, man, you're just keeping the good things going, right? You're playing it forward. All right? So it's so important to acknowledge and to think about who and what inspires us and how we can use that this year to achieve our goals. That's what we've been talking about today. I'm super excited about that. Let me hear some more feedback from you. Anyone's on, because I can't always see when people are on or not. If you have an additional question along those lines, I'd be happy to share it or answer it. If you come up with something after we're done, just drop a note in the feed or direct message me. I'll be happy to respond. I will also ask if you will please share these Coffee Time Career Chats with others. Guess what? That's the way we get this going, and we build up, and we can make sure that we're serving more people who are concerned and have an interest in building forward on their professional careers and their personal goals in a way that will be not just successful in terms of worldly and things like that, but for achieving personal success, for achieving those personal goals that many of us have, and we need the support in order to make that happen. And that's what I'm here to do. All right. Tons of things going on, like I said, this year. One of the things that's going on right now is that I am still accepting placements for beginning of the year VIP intensive career intensives. So if you or someone is looking for an intensive short-term coaching opportunity, this is when you literally get on a phone or Zoom call with me for 2, 4, or 6 hours, and we knock it out. Focus specifically on issues that are of concern to you. And I'd love to get on a chat with you about what that looks like. We can do a consult. I can tell you what the expectations are, what we can focus on, and how we can help you. So if you or someone is interested in that opportunity, please reach out. And just stay tuned to this page for all the goodness that's coming this month and this year. And I will look forward to talking with you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.